Hi, I'm Matt from Wex Photographic, and today I'm going to be explaining how you can shoot long exposures. Long exposures allow you to make the most of low light conditions, and they work particularly well when you've got a moving subject. Now, they're not particularly difficult in themselves, but there are a few things that you could do with bearing in mind before you start shooting. The first thing to think about is your equipment. A DSLR or a compact system camera is ideal, but you can also use a compact camera that allows you some control over the shutter speed. A wide-angle lens or a zoom lens that starts from a wide angle is usually a good choice when capturing buildings, traffic trails or other expansive scenes, although you should use whichever lens fits the scene best. A tripod is also pretty much essential. Carbon fibre tripods are ideal as they tend to absorb vibrations better than those made from aluminium, but you can use either. The most important thing is that it's sturdy enough to remain absolutely still during the exposure. Finally, a remote release will also help you to trigger the shutter without touching the camera itself, although don't worry if you don't have one, as there is an alternative. To capture long exposures, you need to set your camera up in a specific way. Set your ISO to the lowest point of its standard sensitivity range, which should be around ISO 100 to 200, as this will help you get a longer shutter speed. Set the camera to either the shutter priority option or the manual option on the mode dial, as these will allow you to select the exact length of the exposure. There's no reason why you can't use aperture priority instead if you feel more comfortable doing so. As you're likely to be dealing with very dark and bright details, you may prefer to shoot in a RAW mode, as this will give you maximum control over the details in each, and you'll also have better control over things like white balance and noise reduction. Set your camera up on the tripod and plug in the remote release if you have one. If you don't have one, simply select one of the self-timer drive modes on the mode dial, as this will ensure the shutter is released without any physical contact from yourself. Activate the camera's live view function and frame your image. You can use the optical viewfinder if your camera has one, although if you're shooting at night, you might find it easier to use the live view option instead, or an EVF if one's built into your camera. If your camera has a leveling function, use this to make sure it's straight, or alternatively, use the spirit levels on your tripod. If you're using the shutter priority option, start by selecting a shutter speed that results in the aperture that you need. For scenes like this, where you want everything to be in focus, an aperture of around f11 to f16 should be fine. Focus on the key elements in the scene, and if you can, zoom into the image to make sure you've got the focus spot on. If the subject is far away, you may find you need to focus to infinity. Once you're happy, press the shutter release for your first shot. Check the results by zooming in once again, just to make sure that all the details that you want to be sharp are sharp, and that the camera hasn't moved during the exposure. If you want to blur details even further, just adjust the shutter speed while keeping an eye on the aperture. Make sure you set your tripod away from any sources which may cause vibrations, such as cars or other vehicles. Check to see if your tripod has a hook underneath its centre column, as you can attach a bag to weigh it down and keep it more stable during the exposure. If you're shooting images of skies, consider shooting at twilight, as you'll get much more pleasing colours in the skies than if you're shooting later on. And if you're capturing images during the day, you may want to use a neutral density filter, as this will help you achieve a longer shutter speed when there's too much light. For more tips and advice, follow us on Twitter, Facebook or Google+, or visit www.wexphotographic.com/blog.